Hello and welcome back to the Health Chat. I'm your host Vicky Solaritas, and in this episode we get to know Weleda with Australia's Managing Director David Johnston. For the last 14 years, David has guided Weleda through significant growth in Australia, so much that it has a huge cult following. But prior to this, David was the General Manager at Go Vita, where he expanded the group from 68 to over 127 health food stores. A typical day in David's schedule starts with meditation, Tai Chi, and a lovely swim in the ocean. David believes that each day offers opportunities for us to enjoy and appreciate life to the full. So join me on the Health Chat as we get to know Weleda with David Johnston. Hello, David, and thank you for joining me on the Health Chat.
Hey, Victoria, nice to be here.
Look, Weleda needs no introduction. It's a brand that is really well known. It has a huge cult following. I'm actually surprised that Weleda is 100 years old this year. What's the secret?
I guess the secret is that started about 100 years ago, as you said. Actually, it started earlier than that with Dr. Ita Wegman, a Dutch lady doctor, and Rudolf Steiner working together. And she had a clinic in Dornach in Switzerland. And at that stage, people would come from all over Europe to find out and get healed. So there was baths there was spas, and they created a thing called anthroposophic medicine, which is herbal, homeopathic, and mineral combined. And the whole essence of it is, how do we use nature to help the body to get stronger, to heal itself? Steiner being quite a remarkable human being. He was a humanitarian, a lecturer. He also developed the principles of biodynamic farming. So why it's lasted 100 years and how that's happened is because of those principles of using nature and kind of being respectful of nature and people. So at our core, we are all about people and planet, have been 100 years and continue to be now.
Yeah, I'll come back to that a bit later on. I can feel it in every product that Weleda create. And I know you've been the CEO for Weleda for the last 14 years. And what are some of the changes you've made for Weleda, and how has Weleda evolved in Australia? Because like I said before, it's like this huge cult following.
Yeah, again, I think what I've done is stay out of the way of what Weleda is, in some ways. And there's a thing, I'm fortunate that I've had my own retail stores, health food stores. I've managed distribution, so I know what it's like from there. I've managed the Go Vita group of health food stores. We grew from 67 stores to 28 stores while I was there. So I kind of know it from different angles. So one of the key things is, I understand what it's like for everybody. I know, what distributors go through. I know what retailers go through. So all we tried to do is respectfully do what we would like to be done for us. You know what I mean? It's not that complex. But when you've got a brand like Weleda, it is kind of not getting in the road and telling the story. So for me, I've always told my salespeople, don't try and sell. Just tell the story, let them try the product, and allow that to be the thing that goes from there. We have so many stories on every aspect of what goes on, from the biodynamic farming to the Union of Ethical Biotrade, to the NATRU, to the relationships and partnerships we have with people across the globe, to the fair trade and beautiful things. We do some amazing things, but a lot of it comes back to, how can we really be those sort of people that look after people and planet and do that in a meaningful way. So it's not like, it's kind of like it is our life as well. And that to me makes the difference, I think.
And so let's go back to when you were in that retail space and that distribution space. Was Weleda just emerging in our market, or was it well established in the Australian market?
It's a complex story in some ways. So if you go back 100 years to when Weleda started in Europe, and I'll put this in and then I'll come back to answer that question a little bit, because you've kind of got to get the trail. So again, Ita Wegman and Steiner are working on these things. You've got to understand, this is just after the First World War. So they're helping to bring back a sense of health and vitality. And the farmers are coming to him as well and saying, hey, our animals are stressed, the land is a mess, and now we're being given this superphosphate because they're not making bombs anymore. And they're saying, put it in the soil. And it doesn't seem right to them. And he starts to develop what is known as biodynamic. So there's organic and there's biodynamic. And he comes back working on these things that deal with moon's phases. Some of this stuff that people go, oh, that's a bit woo-woo. But these days, everyone's going, woo-woo makes a lot more sense in many ways. I mean, we know science, but science often, the one we know is the one that fits into a box, where true science is that discovery of what is it that makes these things work. I mean, we don't even know how gravity really works. You know, there's so much we don't know. So this is just this beautiful opportunity to open up those things. So I've lost track of the question now.
Was it as big 14 years ago? So when you had that experience in the retail space, yeah.
So, and I was getting there. So that was 100 years ago. And then in England, it started like 95 years ago. And in America, I think 90 years ago. And people came from Germany, Switzerland, Europe, and they kind of started spreading out. But instead of coming to Australia, which was hot and hostile, they went to New Zealand. So New Zealand has been there for 65 years. It has its own biodynamic farm. It manufactures some things there, and they were looking after Australia. Now, when because everyone in Europe thinks, well, they're so close together.
They're the same, yeah.
They might as well. So they were looking after Australia. And, I love my New Zealand colleagues, but we were their second market. So every time something would happen, they'd be looking after their market. So Australia got left behind a little bit. So when I first came along, we were unreliable supply, and, the date of product could go out. So our first thing was to kind of make sure that we looked after those process logistics things and then start to build it. So I think it was more, here's where we are, this is where we're going. If you can, and then a year later, I could come back and say, I said this, now please trust us and we'll do the rest. And because I've been around for a while, I think people started to trust us reasonably well.
Yeah. Now, I know that Weleda, you were speaking a bit about its biodynamic farming and how farmers were going to Steiner and asking, well, what do we do now? And so Weleda really does seem to harness the power of natural ingredients to deliver results. And there's probably a misconception, or probably a truth behind it. But when I first saw Weleda, or when I experienced Weleda, I didn't quite understand that there was quite a lot of scientific research that goes behind these products. Because, we probably think about wizards in the garden, plucking the plants and the flowers to make something, but there is quite a scientific approach. And I'd love to know just briefly how the process of a product is created, tested, right through, from the moment of inception of planting right through to manufacturing.
A great question, and one that, again, I've got to be careful because there's so many things that you could go off on. And I remember the first time that I went over and visited in Germany and Switzerland, and I was outside, and the building itself is beautiful, some of the buildings, and they've got like 3 stories of this water coming down the wall, making this incredible moss. It flows under the building and then gets kind of succussed in a way in a little bit of a waterfall out into a garden area. It's got grasses and plants growing over the top. And it's they open the floor at times to let the coolness come through. So you've got that. And the staircase, if I remember rightly, was like a rainbow staircase. However, then I went to look into the manufacturing, which was right next door, and you're fully suited up, stainless steel, all the doors, and it's this total Swiss stainless, just precise in everything that's done, but blended together in this beautiful way with the most natural feeling of the building. And it was really quite remarkable. And for me, I'm not a scientist in many ways, but when I've observed some of the things that go into it, and I've been to some of the talks, it just makes sense. It's like science exploring what happens. What is the vibration of something? How, even when you look at how we create the medicines, it's what's called signature of doctrines. It is observing a plant to see what that plant may do. So it's totally in respect of those things in the past. All Chinese medicine, all Ayurvedic medicine, all of these that have been around for thousands of years and are now getting more and more recognized for what they're able to do, come from this same principle. It's the same principle that's existed around in First Nations. This world provides us with all that we need. All of the soil is, as we call it, earth's skin, and it is being diminished at the moment. We need to protect it. And one of the key things that happens with that is all of our clothes come from there, all of our medicine, all of our food comes from there. And when we feed it properly so that things can really be nurtured and grow, that's where the best medicine and everything comes from as well. So there's just, this world's amazing.
Yeah. And what a great story. Like, it is our skin. And I suppose that is the campaign that Weleda's running at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we like that because we're losing masses of soil. I saw a video one time, and they had this shovelful of normal soil, like from a industrial, shovelful of organic soil, and shovelful of biodynamic soil. And they left it out for 10 days in the rain and the wind and the sun and everything else. This one virtually washed away. This left a little mound. The biodynamic one still had the spongy sense of being there, even throughout all of those elements. And it's like the same with our skin. If we want to expose it and if we're not careful, if we don't feed it right, it's not going to be able to deal with all of those elements. Same with this earth. We need to come back. As I said recently, when you look at First Nations, they call the earth Mother Earth. And we've been like spoiled children, taking all the time. And it's time we started to grow up and mature a little bit and give back and start to heal this scarred surface of this planet that we've been doing for a while. And that's why we have this campaign this year of Save Earth's Skin, trying to, compare the two. I thought it was pretty clever in doing it. And we're doing things with around the globe, but in Australia here, we're doing something with Carbon8, which they're helping to train up farmers to do regenerative farming practices. And there's a lot of interest now from farmers because they're seeing not only is it better for planet, but it's better for them economically when they get it together as well. This whole thing of needing massive industrialized farming practices, like everything else that we create, is just our own concept. We can change those concepts into something else. There's enough food in this world, there's enough everything if we look after each other and look after the planet.
That was a philosophy from 100 years ago, where Steiner was all about this type of thought. It was just a way of thinking, whereas now we look at it as a forward way of thinking, but really it's not. It has just never been really brought out as Weleda did many years ago. And the founders of Weleda, Rudolph and Ita, the doctors and scientists, that they really did have this philosophy of, and I apologize if I mispronounce this, anthroposophy, is that correct?
That was very good. It took me a lot longer than it did you to be able to get there.
I love it. I read about it and I understood the connection immediately. And I'll tell you why. So for those that haven't heard it, it's the harmonious connection between people and plants and the wider picture. And of course, you know it better than I do, David. But
Anthro-human, Sophie, wisdom, the wisdom of human.
And I can feel it in every single Weleda product that I use. And I couldn't explain it, but I remember using it and I could feel that energy.
Yeah.
And I use it on my children when they were babies, and I've gifted it many times to mothers who say exactly the same thing. And we can't explain what it is scientifically. I can't put my finger on what it is, but it's there.
Yeah, but you can't put your finger on it when you just feel some emotion that connects you, particularly with nature, and particularly, and when I say nature, we human beings are nature as well. Do you know what I mean? We can't separate ourselves. So that connection we have with other human beings, that connection that we have out in nature, is just is a magical thing. But I was telling someone this story the other day, so it just occurred to me again, and it goes to the heart of some of the things that Weleda do that I don't get in my head, but I honestly, you get here. And it's this interesting one with hypericum. Now, we don't have it in here in Australia, this product, so I can talk about it more freely. Hypericum is good for nerve endings, St. John's wort. It's a beautiful plant. You can see the little cells in it. If you rub them, they turn red. It's really quite a delightful thing. It grows, we grow some in this bed in Germany. And I've been there, and they were telling me about it. And one of the things they say is that hypericum is good for depression. And another is aurum or gold is good for opening the heart. So what they do is they use some gold dust in the compost for the hypericum. But they don't just do that and grow the plant and go, well, now it's imbued with those principles. So when people have got depression, their heart's opening as well. They take the first year's crop, they chop it up, and they use that as the next year's mulch as well. They take the second year crop and they do the same thing. So it's only in year 3 that they start to extract from that hypericum the tincture that will be used to go into the products to make products for depression. Now, you just kind of go, that's crazy. Why would you go to such an extent? It's just because they've observed the potentizing of this that works in that way. And some people will go, oh, that's baloney. For me, when I've seen these things, when I've experienced them, yourself, when you use some of these things on children, all of a sudden they just open up and they don't have any concept of, oh, this is because, my dad's given it to me or whatever else. It's just, it has that thing. And they're the ones that I can't put on a label. I can't go, I can think other companies are greenwashing, that's fine, but how do I put on the things that go into the products that actually make it? How do you put in that this is biodynamic, that it has that much more vitality? I mean, I think you can actually measure the vitamin content of a carrot biodynamically to organically and to normally, and that's massive difference. And it'd be nice if people started to hear those sort of things, because it does make, and the taste of it, always.
This brings me back to the previous question about that flow of cultivating the plant, picking the plant, the research behind why a particular ingredient was used, right through, the scientific aspect and then the manufacturing. And so is there that type of flow that I'm thinking?
Yeah, there is the rigor behind all of it. I mean, it's sometimes frustrating as a marketing sales type of person, the time that it takes to get a product out to market for us is much longer than anyone else, because we do all of those tests and trials and everything else. And we do it from both perspectives. We do it from that scientific perspective that is recognized, that fits into the box, the one that the double-blind placebo, the evidence-based thing. But then we also do that more intrinsic one that still has, the more you get into it, but it's a little bit harder to wrap your head around. I mean, mankind, and I say man meaning mainly male, but always likes to be able to put things in a box because then we feel somehow that we can understand or control it. The thing is that there's so much that doesn't fit into a box. Our emotions don't fit into a box. We're always trying to classify things, but science doesn't necessarily have to fit into a box to feel that limited. And, you know, we do everything we possibly can from the beginning all the way through testing with everything we have. We're one of I mean, we have dates on all of our products where a lot of skincare brands don't, mainly because they use preservatives, so they don't need to. But, you know, it's all of that that goes into it. And even with our essential oils, you know, the way we blend them, we have people in there. The beauty with natural things when you don't add chemicals is they have their own inherent pleasantness, where chemical ones tend to have something that isn't nice that you're trying to overpower the fragrance of. So it's like when you're doing a good meal, you know, you do a good tomato pasta or something, adding the basil at the right time and the right amount of pepper and just that hint of salt, the flavor just jumps up. We're fortunate that we've already got a great base within the ingredients we use, and then bringing in these essential oils that we just can harmonize to just make that lift. And that also gives us something up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It definitely kind of lifts the spirit when you get the right thing in there and make it work. We also work with a company called Union of Ethical Biotrade. We're certified by them. They do foods and coffee across the globe, and they're like fair trade. Well, I was going to say on steroids, but that's wrong. So fair trade, you know, double up there. They ensure everything from the manufacture, from the growing, the harvesting, the manufacturing, all the way through is done with care and respect of nature and of the people that are involved. We consult the First Nations people in a country where we need to, and ensure that everyone's paid a fair wage. So being certified by them, I would love more and more and more companies to do that, as I would love more to become B Corp. Because B Corp is yet another way of validating that everything you're doing as best you can, you're doing to ensure you're looking after people and planet in the most harmonious way. And these are things that once people start to recognize them, then hopefully more will want to buy from those companies, and therefore that will force more to want to do those things, which will lift the whole lot of us up and start to do good in this world. Because I don't think we can wait for politicians to get it together to make the difference. I think there's a chance of rising within the business and the community to make that difference.
Well put, David. Now, I'm looking behind you and I can see a gorgeous picture. So anyone that's watching, if you're listening, you can still take a look at us on our YouTube channel. But there's a lovely backdrop that David's got, and there's a farmer there, and it's got Save Earth Skin. Where is this located?
I'm almost certain that this one is our gardens in England, which are not as large as the ones in Germany. Germany's been there for many, many years. I think it's 130 hectares or something. It's huge. I mean, I was over there recently picking calendula in the morning. I mean, that in itself is a whole story as well. It's so beautiful, and getting out early in the morning and hand picking just as the sun's rising, and you know, you're doing each head one at a time, and then they come through and cut the plant to use the rest of it, but they lie it down so that the bugs can get off it as well before they pick it up. And our distillery is like a few hundred meters away, so it goes straight into there as well. But this one, I believe, from memory, I'm sure that's Clare in England, and it's a beautiful garden there as well. But we have one in New Zealand. There's I think also one in Argentina. We've got them around, but we also have those fair trade partnerships across the globe, where at times we will have a relationship where if their crop fails, we'll still continue to pay them, so that they know that they can rely on that. And we work in advance. There's some places where we won't get a crop from them on things like sandalwood for 10 to 12 years, but we're still invested so that they know that they can invest themselves and there'll be a return at a point in time in there. We have things like our wild rose in Turkey, where there was, I think, 30 farmers initially, now 300 farmers. Entire subsistence is these wild roses, converting to biodynamics so that they're healing the earth as well, learning the skills so that those skills can get passed on to others to be able to develop them. We put a small school in there so that their children were able to be educated. In Moldova, where we do the lavender, we've put in a small clinic so doctors can come and treat the local people, because some of these are a fair way out that you've got to do it, you know. And other ones like in Tibet, Nepal, somewhere, I can't remember right now, we have our Ratania root, and that can't be cultivated, so we have to wild harvest it, same as we do with some of our arnica. So, you know, it's like, how do you work with nature and, you know, with the local community to make these things work as best you can. Again, so many stories, and each time I go to tell one, I can think of the additional one that comes from there as well, that really has a lot of heart in it.
And it really is saving Earth's skin. I mean, it's not just one country. These are farms that are located around the world. So you really are saving Earth's skin. And I really want to touch on that, because if there was one thing, David, that you think, one simple thing, make it simple because people won't do it otherwise, that would take little effort but would have maximum impact to help make our Earth soil better for the future generations, what would it be? And following from that, what is something we should stop doing that would have a great impact?
Yeah, look, honestly, I think people just need to get into nature and enjoy their life. And once they do, they fall in love with this whole existence, and then they start finding ways. But probably on a practical, here are the 3 hot tips. Just start growing a few things and make sure that you don't add chemicals to what you're doing. Stop the spraying. These bugs are so important to us. We don't know what they do within the food chain that impacts on us later on. We just, you know, spiders are okay. Stop killing everything, you know, making Agent Orange across the globe. It's just not necessary. There are ways that you can do it, that you can work with it. So you grow your own and do some composting. People don't understand that not only does composting, taking your fruit and veggies and put them in the compost, it's not only good to make compost, because then you start to get a whole sense of that and you can put that in your garden. But every time you're putting your vegetable and fruit scraps in the bin, they go into landfill and create more methane gas. And it's just like, you know, it's not just this, it's the impact that we're doing there. So stop doing that, but start doing this. And, you know, just try to take the time to enjoy this life. In some ways, when you do, it's not going to be because you're taking, it's not going to be because you're gathering more and more possessions. Sure, you can have fun with all of those, but how good does it feel when you're doing something that's giving? How good does it feel when you're in nature with your friends? They're the things that, you know, you work so hard. So bring back that. And once you bring back that, you just want more of it. And the rest can balance itself out.
Oh, that's a great answer, David. And that's something we can all do. And I will admit, you know, when we go out, we do have that connection with nature and with people, and therefore we want to do more good for nature. So I can totally see what you mean by that. Now, I would normally say that for a company, a lot would have changed over 100 years. But I feel with Weleda, it really has stayed true to its core and not much has changed. Now, I know you've been to Germany just recently for a conference with Weleda and stuff. So is it true? Has a lot stayed true to how it was?
Look, I would say the core principles remain the same. How we apply them and what we do to ensure that we're dealing with them as best we can. We're NATRU certified because we believe that's the best certification, because it doesn't just deal with the ingredients, it deals with the whole product. So we're always trying to do things to validate more than we probably felt we had to in the past. And we do have to jump through a lot more hoops to satisfy all regulatory things, but still at the core of who we are and the way we do things, it's all about connecting people and planet in a harmonious way to make a better life for all of us ongoing. And I don't think that that can ever change. Is there anything else that we've brought in? Systems, processes, just to bring it back, because it's so easy to get distracted. But really, if you come back to what we need in this world, now it's coming back to us as individuals and working together and reconnecting, because everything that we've done over the last 50, 60 years has kind of separated us a little bit. And now I think people are craving more of that connection, are craving more of working with nature and working with other human beings.
Yeah, I would agree. And so is there any new products that are coming out from Weleda your last trip?
Yeah, we've got some great ones. And again, we're playing more with the skin food one, which I think is really good because it's such an iconic thing. And again, if you think of where it comes from, because skin food, the original, I think is 97 years old this year.
Wow.
96, 97. And if you go back, so we started in 1921. Before that, there was, all of the creation of the product. Then Steiner bought a small manufacturing company and called it Weleda, and that was after the Celtic healing priestess. So even back then, he had the respect of the feminine energy and the healers from the past. So skin food was, again, almost a medicine. When people aren't well, their hair goes funny, so he created rosemary hair tonic. Their skin dries out or can be a bit strange, so the skin food. And the Retania mouthwash and toothpaste was because sometimes your gums aren't good. So, they partially came from the medicinal base, and we still use the same principles that we do in making medicine in our other products as well. So one of the new ones is the skin food body lotion. We had a body butter, and that's just, you've got to, you can massage, you can rub it. It's just gorgeous. And the fragrance, again, is that lifting, beautiful, it reminds me of after a rain, how the ozone feels fresh. Every time I sniff it, it's just like it lifts from there. And then we have these 4 beautiful shower bars that we've put together, and each one has these unique combination of essential oils, into the product itself, so the fragrances last quite well. And their shower bars, the box is cardboard, recycled and recyclable. Everything is as environmentally friendly and conscious as we can possibly get it. And people we've been using them around are just loving them and really saying that they're great, they last a long time, and they're really worthwhile. So that's more of the developments that are coming, and they're quite a good price for what they are. I think that's one of the tricky things for Weleda. Steiner always wanted our products to be affordable to the masses. And therefore, for the quality of what we create, the price should be so much more, but we have to keep it contained, which is why, we have to watch all of our marketing and everything else just to get the quality of the product out to everyone.
And plus, like you mentioned before, you're invested in these farms that may not produce a crop for a certain amount of time. So there's a lot of different elements I can see. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that Ita Wegman, or how it's pronounced, how do you pronounce it? Wegman. So she was a physician and had a clinic back then 100 years ago. What's happened to that clinic?
Beautiful question. She has a whole story herself. I mean, she's Dutch, but she grew up in Indonesia. She came back and became a massage therapist and then a doctor. And then from there into the working with Steiner on this anthroposophic medicine, and also another pharmacist called Otto Schurman. And her clinic, the building still exists, but it's now a 90-bed hospital that treats people only with natural things. And around Switzerland and Germany, I think there's 6 other hospitals based on this anthroposophic medicine principles, etc., that treat people naturally. And that clinic, you go in for all manner of things, but a lot of cancer patients go there as well. And they're treated with natural things to be able to deal with their cancer. Really beautiful place. And it's actually right now being rebuilt. It's still functioning, but they're rebuilding it. And when I was there, we'd go around, and it's again one of those amazing things where they've been able to balance that natural feel, but with the scientific things. So the beds are timber, you know, which you don't get. The door handles are brass, and everything just feels good walking around. And it has that sense of healing rather than like that hospital sometimes rushing through. You know, we need to bring back what is it that will heal and help people in to feel better in life.
That is amazing. So from 100 years ago, or 100 plus years ago, it's still being used. That is amazing.
Yeah. And the original little building is still sitting there as well. I think that will always be there.
Oh, what a great philosophy. Like I said before, I love Weleda products. I think that there is an element that I can't put my finger on, but I can put my heart on to say this is amazing. I can resonate with this. Thank you so much for chatting with us, David. It's been an absolute pleasure to learn more about the campaign, the 100 years, where Weleda has come from and where it's headed. Is there anything you'd like to say to finish off?
I just know, because I've been around for 14 years with Weleda and a lot longer in the health industry, every time I look behind the scenes of what happens, I just get that sense of how amazing our products really are. And sometimes if I'm doing an expo, and I love getting there because I meet people using these things, I'll actually get people coming in and they'll almost be in tears over a product that has just done something for them. We are not a normal company, and I feel good about that, and I want more companies to be how we are. We really are people, planet, purpose driven to be able to make a difference in this world. And right now, I think it needs a lot more of us trying to do good things to lift it a little bit in every way we possibly can. So I thank you for the opportunity to be able to put forward some of these, and I hope everyone just has a wonderful life.
Thank you so much, David.